In a new year, and with that come new laws and lawmaking. And before this year's bills are debated, the state senators must establish the rules by which they will go about the session.
Our Bella Caracta joins us now in the studio with what we might expect starting tomorrow when the session kicks off. Bella?
Yeah, John, Aaron, state senators are hoping to not have a repeat of what happened last year. The hours-long filibusters became commonplace, and prioritized bills on transgender health care and abortion took center stage. Before things can get rolling this year, however, state senators have to overcome their first hurdle.
Rules are guardrails that we use in the legislature. They pretty well define the box that we operate within.
Speaker John Arch of La Vista has proposed 21 rule changes that range from changing some operations from paper to digital to others that could affect senators' ability from eating up time on the floor for less controversial bills in order to stop more controversial ones.
Those rule changes are dropped early in the session, introduced to the committee. We don't really have much input into them until they come to the floor. And so this year, we know that the rule changes, we wanted good rule changes that will help our process.
Arch and Rules Committee Chairman Senator Steve Erdman proposed potential rule changes late last year.
So we present early, so everybody's had a chance now to see them, to understand them.
Senator Carol Blood of Bellevue doesn't think new rules are necessary,
because I believe it's a knee-jerk reaction to what happened in the last session, which was really very unique when you look at the history of the Nebraska Legislature.
The two can agree on one thing. They hope this year won't be like the last.
I would like to see last year as a one-off, and we return to how we have done things in the past.
In the future, when we are addressing culture war bills, I think you're going to see people be more strategic in a way that's more productive.
And Speaker Arch told me he plans to allot no more than 2.5 weeks to debate rules. Erin?
Bella, thank you. Well, the